Hey everyone, welcome back to Adventure World in Godot. In this video I'm really excited because we're going to start working on enemies. My daughter was playing this the other day and she was complaining. She's like, "Daddy, it's too easy. You need to add some enemies." And so I was like, alright, we'll get on that. So we're going to add a simple snail enemy. And so from the art assets I got from Kenny's assets, there's all kinds of animals or creatures in here, and we'll try and add, but I think the snail will be the easiest one to implement real quick. Now I'm going to split this up into a few videos, but in this first video I wanted to show you a simple implementation of a really basic enemy, just so you can kind of see in action how you might do this in a simple way. And then what we'll do is we'll look at refactoring, which means changing the code to be a little bit more optimal or pretty, so that we can add more enemies quicker later without having to do as much rework. So to get started, we're going to go ahead and create a new scene, and I'm going to go right here to the origin of that scene, and I'm going to add a kinematic body. And so that kinematic body is just like the player. We have to move it around with code, but it can still interact with the physics of the game. We're going to add a animated sprite to show our snail, and we're also going to add a collision shape for the snail. So on the animated sprite, I'm going to create a new sprite frame and then click it and come in here, and we'll call this walk, and we will grab the two snail walk animations and save. Oh, don't want to save this yet. I need to rename this to enemy snail. Alright, and I'm going to save this, and I've already created an enemies folder here, so I'm going to save it in there. And then set the collision shape. We'll go with a rectangle this time. Might be able to get away with a circle, but we'll try the rectangle this time. Alright, good enough. Now I need a script here on my enemy, and because I've got it already saved, my file name is good. And well, this was from my testing, so we're going to wipe this out and save that. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to copy quite a bit of the player code over. So I'm just going to Control A to grab everything, and then Control C to copy it, and then go here into my enemy snail, and then Control V to paste. Alright, so that'll give us all of our contents of the player script here in my snail script. And so I'm going to strip out the water stuff, I'm going to strip out the health stuff, I'm just going to leave the movement stuff, and we will come back to that. I don't need to display the health, so I'm going to remove that. I also don't need to set the position like when the scene loads, so I'm going to remove that, which also means I can remove my ready method. Don't need the hurt method because we'll handle that later, but for this first little example I don't want to get too in depth. Also going to remove the pass out and knocked back, and because we removed the other water stuff, we can remove that. I could have left those things in there and then programmed the snail to interact with the water just like the player does when he hits it, but for this really simple example I'm just stripping it out. Alright, now I do still want gravity, but because I removed the water I need to remove that and then shift that over. So now my snail should still have gravity. We removed the passed out, so I need to get that. I can leave this, and I need to remove this as well. So all this is related to how we control our character. So I am going to pull this out, but I'm going to get the regular one. So there's how I move right, and here is how I move left. And the rest of this I can pretty much get rid of, because our snail can't jump, so I don't need any of the jump stuff. And anyways, so what I'm going to use for determining whether he's going left or right, I could add a direction property up here, which possibly be smart. We may look at that when we do the refactor, but in this case I'm just going to do just like I did with the player, and I'm going to pull the animated sprites flip H property, right? So let's drill in here, and what we'll do is say if, and I could do my get node right here, but here's a trick that I probably should have been doing, but I wasn't because I wanted to keep the code simple. But this actually helps shorten some of my code, so let's give it a shot. So, and we'll probably try and do this going forward. So I can set up this property up here called onReady, and this is a special keyword that will assign this when the node is created. Var, let's call this sprite equals, and then I can do my get node, and I'll get that animated sprite. So what this will do is when the script is created, it'll go ahead and run this code and say get node animated sprite, and then assign that into this sprite property. So now down here, instead of saying get node everywhere, all I have to do is say sprite, and then I can use that flip H property equals true. And so if it's true, then that by default my snail is facing left. So if I flip the H, he'll be facing right. So let's go ahead and mark that. So right. And I'll move this code over. I think this was, yeah, so X, positive X means move to the right, and negative X means move to the left. So here, to make him move left, I'll say else left. And I'm just putting this comment in here so that I remember which direction flip H true means. Right? So now I'm going to save that, and let's add it to the level so that we can kind of do some testing here. Let's clear out this spike. We'll move it up there. We'll move this bush right here. Move it over to the left some so that I have room for my spike. Good enough. And then what I probably need to do, it's not important at this point, but I would probably create a empty node 2D called like enemies, right? And then put all of my enemies under here. So I'm going to select that node, and then I'm going to come over to my enemies folder. Whoop, this is my art folder, enemies folder, and I'll drag my snail in. And I'll just put him right there. He should run at me, at my player. So let's give that a shot. So there he goes. Now that's an awful fast snail. So let's slow him down a little bit. So if I go into my script here, I'm going to bump down my max speed down to, say, 8,000. Give that a play. There he goes. Now I forgot to set his animation, so he's just sliding in that default animation right now. So what we can do is he's pretty much always going to be running. So really what we could do is just on ready. Ready. I'm just going to play that animation. So what I can do is, since I've already assigned this, since I've already assigned that sprite, I can just say sprite.play walk, right? And so now he should animate, I hope. So there he goes. Yeah, now we're getting our little snail animation. Looks good, but when he hits the player, he doesn't hurt the player. So to fix that, what we'll do is we will add another area 2D. And the reason I'm doing this is I noticed if I look at my kinematic body, I don't have any body entered event, right? And neither does the collision shape. There's no body entered event there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab a area 2D, and I'm going to assign that a collision shape, And on the area 2D, I now have a body entered, right? So I'm going to attach that up here to my enemy snail script, and it always puts it at the bottom. Let's move it up so I can see it. Put it right after the ready. I always like to leave the ready at the top, but anyways. So here I'm going to do just like I did on the spikes, and we could go look at the spikes if we wanted to. So if I come over here, there's my bushes. I don't see my spikes. So let's go back to the level, and we will go to static objects and spikes. And let's look at this. Let's look at the script on that. And so we're just going to copy this. So we're saying if the body has the method hurt, call the hurt function. So in my snail script, I'm going to do the same thing. If the body has the hurt method, then call the hurt method. I'm also going to extend this as well and say and body.isInGroup player. And the reason for this is if I had two snails running back and forth, they would actually hurt each other unless I added this. And this is not by accident. My player object, if you go and look at my player object here, it has the group player, and so that's what it's looking for. Alright, so back in my script, this should now hurt the player. Well, I forgot to set the collision shape here, so before I go off and run that, let's set that. And this needs to be a little bit bigger than the internal one, because the internal one is what causes the snail to stop on the player. So we actually want to hurt him before he stops on the player. Let's give that a shot. And we'll start it. And we'll wait for the snail to come over, and boom! He hits my player and damages him. Now, it's not re-triggering, and we could fix that. We probably should do that to the spikes as well. But we'll do that later. If I jumped out of the way and landed back on him, I would pass out. So that's awesome. So we in this short video, we managed to make a enemy and have him hurt the player. Now the one thing that snail didn't do, you might have seen it, was he runs all the way to the side and stops. That's not very exciting. So I think in the next video we'll figure out how to make him. Actually, we'll save that till after we do the refactor, because I think the refactor will help clean things up a lot. But we'll make the snail be able to turn around, and like in this case, he might turn around and walk back and forth, which will make him a little bit more exciting and difficult to avoid. Also, we may look at if he was, say, up here on this platform without the spikes, maybe instead of falling off, he may stop and turn around. And we'll use something called raycast for that. So give you something to look forward to, and I'll see you next time.